Welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. There's growing concern among intelligence officials of an extensive European terror network. This comes after Greek police detained 4 suspected terrorists in Athens over the weekend on alleged links to an Islamist terror plot. Joining us to discuss are Heritage Foundation's Steve Bucci and Foundation for the Defense of Democracy's Bill Roggio. Welcome, gentlemen. Let me turn to you first, Steve. What we've seen now, we've seen Paris, we've seen another terrorist plots in Belgium that have been disrupted, now Greece. Is this part of an inter-European Islamist terror network, do you think?
Well, there at least seems to be some very vague connections until we really get the results of the investigations, KT, into their computers, phones, all that stuff. It'd be really hard to say definitively that they're all really interconnected.
Bill, let me turn to you. Why are these Europeans all of a sudden capable of doing this? I mean, how are they getting trained? How are they getting recruited? You and the Long War Journal have written about this for a number of years, but what's the current sort of pipeline for European terrorists?
Well, for years, European terrorists were training in Afghanistan and in Pakistan and waging jihad primarily in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Then with the Syrian civil war, the battlefield opened up, and it's a lot easier to travel to Syria and Iraq via Turkey for a lot of European jihadists. So we've tracked over 70 training camps that have either been opened or currently in operation. We believe most of them are currently in operation. These camps are crucial for European jihadists to go through. They're learning on the battlefield, and then some of them are thought to be coming back and coming back to Europe, and those are the ones that are posing a threat. There's also jihadist groups operating in Yemen and in North Africa and the Saharan Africa as well. So we have a growing jihadist threat in expanding battlefields, and now thought to be thousands of fighters going overseas, receiving some form of professional training, and then coming back to their home countries and possibly plotting there. It's unclear if any of those were arrested or linked to these networks at this time, but we believe the Charlie Hebdo attackers, one or both of the brothers may have trained inside Yemen.
Steve, what's the threat to the U.S. homeland? We've seen, over the weekend, Senator Johnson from the Homeland Security Committee, he said he wouldn't be surprised if there were sleeper cells in the United States. Senator Feinstein, formerly chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, as well as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Representative McCall, they've all warned about sleeper cells in the United States. What threat is there to America of these people who are somehow connected to the European terror networks?
Well, quite clearly, we've had American citizens, American passport holders, or resident aliens go over, just as Bill has mentioned, fought in other parts of the world and have returned. We have these foreign fighters in Europe that have the capability, once they return home to Europe, to come here to the United States and to visit, to do whatever they might plan to do here. I'm not sure we have the long-term sleeper cell problem that seems to be evolving in Europe, but at the very least we have the strong possibility that these folks who have had some sort of training, some sort of experience, might have at least tangential connections back to the AQ or ISIS, some of the other networks that are out there that could be here in the States and looking for a chance to continue the jihad.
Bill, how do you find these guys? After every one of these terrorist incidents in Paris and the Boston bombers, wherever, people will go back and say, there were so many warning signs, we just didn't put it all together. Is there any way of collecting these warning signs or connecting the dots, if you will, before an attack to prevent an attack either in Europe or the United States, Bill?
I think it's possible, and the reality is that French intelligence were tracking both of the brothers that were involved in the Charlie Hebdo attack, but they just deemed them to be not as critical a threat, and then they dropped the tracking of them, I believe somewhere in 2012, 2013. So I don't believe that part of the problem here is we're dealing with this as a policing problem, and we've never, 13 years after 9/11, we haven't 14 now, we haven't stepped up on a war footing when it comes to here at home. We haven't figured out how to track and deal with individuals who we know are communicating with and sometimes traveling the battlefields. We just haven't figured that out. We need Congress, the executive branch, and the judicial branch all to come together and craft some sort of policy to deal with this type of problem. But instead, we just are using a pre-9/11 mindset when tracking them inside of their countries of origin.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. That's Steve Bucci of the Heritage Foundation and Bill Roggio from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. And for more on this developing story, stay with FoxNews.com. I'm KT McFarland. Thanks for watching DEFCON 3.